Do you remember the first piece of advice I gave you when you guys started making money?
The profit first advice? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I told this to Mason, and I was like, and it's hilarious because like I knew I should do this since before I started making money.
It's good you did.
Yeah, it was like, no, I didn't at first. So like, so before I started making money, I was reading all of these books on investing and finance, and I was like, okay, as soon as I start making money, I'm gonna like exercise this system and put this aside for this, this aside for this, this aside for this, and grow that over time. And then as soon as I started making money, I was like, well, that Beamer looks pretty good. Like, but there's all this money. It's gonna just come in forever, right? It's gonna grow. So it took ages for me to actually start doing this. And like I said, that was a big mistake. So please God, just implement this. No matter how much money is coming in, thank you for doing this. I hope you did.
I listened a few months after you told me that.
Okay. Yeah. So there's this system. I mean, we won't get into the intricacies of it because it's set up for businesses in particular, but there's a book called Profit First, which is a really, really simple system. Basically, you set up separate bank accounts for each of the things that you need to allocate money for. So in my business, for example, there's an income account, which is linked with our like online merchant account. Basically, that's where the money flows into. And then once a week on Fridays, I will allocate a percentage of the income that's come in into each one of the sub-accounts. So there's an account for our advertising. I know exactly what percentage of our income I'm going to spend on advertising. It goes into this account. There's an account for profit, which is profit that I'm taking out of the business myself. There's an account for giving. We donate a ton of money that like we never talk about, but it just goes into that account and I donate that. I never touch that money otherwise. Like if our income goes to zero and the other accounts are depleted and we have bills to pay, and let's say there's a few grand or something in the giving account, I don't touch the giving account because it's for giving. That's the whole point of this. It has to be set in stone. It's like I don't mess with these no matter what. So there's I'm gonna share specifics on how to set this up. First of all, I'm just giving like a picture of how it's done. So the reason all of this is done this way with separate accounts for everything is so that we don't get in the way. If I had been doing this on spreadsheets and just saying like, yeah, I'll calculate this myself and this will go towards this and this will go towards this, but I don't need all these accounts. Eventually human psychology kicks in. You're like, well, I kind of need this for this at this point and this for the, and that was my excuse early on in my business life. I was like, well, we just need one account and then I'll know what to do with it. Like put it here, put it there, whatever. Having the separate accounts makes all the difference in the world. You get your human psychology out of the way and just go by the actual facts, the numbers. So the basic setup to begin with for all of you guys that I recommend is a very, very simple one. There are, I would recommend anyway, 4 accounts. Okay, so 4 separate bank accounts. Not 4 separate banks, just 4 separate accounts.
Would that work? It was like, because I have like a JP Morgan account, but you do like those separate accounts within that account. Is that what you mean, or is it like actually
is that true?
Separate accounts?
Yeah, you have your Chase account, and then you have like 5 bank accounts inside of your one login.
Yeah. One login, multiple accounts within the login.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so this way you can make these transfers easy. It's just clicking buttons. You transfer them over. The starting point that I recommend for everybody is you have like living expenses, and essentially that's income, but that's money that you live off of, right? So the first one is living expenses income. Once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on your needs. But on a consistent basis, like it's on the schedule. I do this every single Friday, no matter what. So it has to be done consistently. you take 10% of what's come in during that time period, and you put that immediately into savings. And that's money that you're basically not touching. And the goal with that is that you're getting to roughly 1 year of personal expenses saved up so that if shit hits the fan, you can live off those savings for a year. It's like you're cash in a vault and you don't touch it. And the Profit First guys actually, like, they recommend setting up a separate bank account at a different bank altogether that's locked, that you can't touch, and transferring it into that account so that you can't get access to it if you want it at some point. Because again, human psychology kicks in. So that's another option. You want to get yourself out of the way and foolproof it, because like we're all animals with survival needs at the end of the day, and we can screw this up for ourselves super easy.
So I'm assuming this is like straight cash savings, not like a low or a low risk fund.
Exactly. So account number 1 is savings. Account number 2 is investing. So this is money that you're investing, and we won't get into that. Go talk to Mason or someone who does investing stuff. I'm not the one to talk to. But that's 10% of your income that goes into an investment. Like, I've primarily put that into real estate myself because my family has been in real estate and it's easy. And I just understand it, I guess. But my best advice, honestly, is to invest in things that you at least somewhat understand. Yeah, like at least somewhat understand, not just into the latest speculation, but something super reliable. If you're not inclined towards thinking about investing, which I'm not, then invest it into things that you don't need to think about. I don't really need to think too much about real estate. People just manage it. And, you know, crypto, you're probably going to be logging in every single day checking that shit. I mean, if you're interested, go for it. If you're fascinated by crypto, like, go for it. If you're not so fascinated and you want to spend your time thinking about other things, then probably put it into something you don't need to think about. So, like, what would you recommend? Like,
I do
just a
all-weather
no-brainer
portfolio.
Yeah.
Talk about this very value. Basically,
Yeah.
it's like 5 different things. You can look it up too. It's just online. That historically, no matter what happens, even like right now, it's really bad. They at least increase a tiny bit. Like gold hedges against the other thing, so like it's just very safe, and it grows with inflation essentially.
What
So
portfolio?
it's called all weather.
Weather?
All weather. So like no matter what the weather is,
Oh,
it's
I
gonna be
see.
safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's usually the yield percentage yearly?
It depends. Like obviously during the last 2 years it was really good. It was like 10% a year, which is unusual. This year it's down like 0.5%, which is really good compared to everyone else who's down like 40%. So yeah.
Still better, yeah, it's exactly still better than SP 500.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So just one thing, Simon. So you basically want to put it into something reliable that you don't need to think about, that historically makes good returns, so that compound interest and exponential growth can take hold. How would you explain like compounding in that case?
The same analogy, I would say. I mean, yeah, it just grows with time, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you fund it with, I don't know, you put $1,000 in, let's say this year, put $1,000 in, and you earn 10% on that. The magic in it is that it grows by 10%, and then that 10% is calculated on that new amount, right? So everybody's probably heard this in school or so. I just want to make sure we're super clear, because it really, over time, it takes off, and that's why this is so effective. We've got 2. Go ahead.
What are your thoughts on retirement funds like Roth IRAs and stuff like that?
That's, talk to Mason. I'm like, yeah, I don't think about that stuff at all.
I'm really good at the building of the business, not gonna lie, but if you guys like want to know like money making skills and stuff, I have a lot of resources I can give you guys, as well as like the Ocean Project. The guy raised a lot of money and stuff. We sell courses and stuff on how to raise money and get the funds, I can just give you guys all that stuff if you want. So just hit me up after this retreat, and I'll just send it over to you guys and whatnot. So
Okay. Simon?
This is particularly about the real estate. Are you investing in like funds, or is it like, how do you actually?
It's property.
It's a big amount of money to spend at once. So you're putting it into an account to eventually pay for a property, or how does that work, particularly for this?
Well, I bought my house really early, and the way that people typically do rental properties is they'll buy one property. That property will ideally in the right market appreciate in value, and then you borrow against the new value to put a down payment on another property, and all the while you're renting it out and getting basically paying the mortgage through the renter income. And so they're all appreciating at the same time. You take out another loan against the property to buy another one, and so on and so forth. I grew up around that. It just like makes sense in my mind. So it was the first thing I went to when I wasn't buying Beamers and partying.
I have that, yeah, my family is also into that, but I guess what I mean, like the question is like, obviously you're not buying a new property every week. You're putting the money into an account to later.
Your investing account, yeah. Your investing
the
account.
money that you're putting it into, it's almost like a savings account. It doesn't go up through different investments.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the investment vehicle that you're putting it into. If it's something like an all-weather portfolio, you're just like depositing it into that account.
it's super
So,
easy to get out of the account.
yeah.
Go into real estate if you want.
Yeah, it would go like straight into that. If it, in the case of real estate, it's accumulating for a little bit. Yeah, it all depends on the investment. If you're doing crypto, like you just spend it right on crypto. Yeah. Good. Where were we? So we have living expenses / income. This is where the money comes in. Make sure that when you're calculating your percentages, you're calculating your percentages based on the money that's come in since you last calculated the percentages. That's the key, because otherwise there's money growing in that account. Ideally, you're not spending it down to zero by the time you get it. So if there's money left over, let's say you've got $100 left over and then 700 comes in or 900 comes in, now you've got 1,000, you're calculating on the 900, not the 1,000. So you could, in theory, if you wanted to, if it's simpler, you could have an account for just income, then living expenses, saving, investing, and the last one that we're about to talk about.
So savings is the second account?
It's the second, or in the example I just gave, if you want to do it that way, it's the third account. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, so you got,
If-
sorry, just,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, you got income, that's the main one, where your income comes, and then you got living expenses, savings, and then you got investing.
Yeah, and I only said living expenses / income because I just do that in one account and I calculate based on the income that's come in since I last did the calculation and the distributions.
And it's 10% into the savings.
So that's the starting point. The starting point that I recommend is 10% into savings, 10% into investing. And again, that might just go straight into a portfolio or whatever, might accumulate if there's a larger investment you want to make. The last one is 10% into giving. And my advice is not to skip that one. It's really not to skip that one.
So powerful.
It's powerful in such a weird way. I can't give you, well, we can get into we won't, I should say, get into like karma and esoteria here. All you need to know is that the more you give, the more you get back. For real. For real. When I was going through real difficulty financially and like we were struggling for air, with the event with my business partner and kicking him out, and we're operating at losses every month, and while that was all happening and it was super, super stressful, like all this survival pressure is crushing in on me, I was actually donating to this woman who was really sick at the time, and funding a lot of her healing. I didn't have money to do that with. I was just like, I don't know how to not help this person. She really needs help, so I was giving it to her. And at every turn along the way during that period of months where we were like hemorrhaging cash and it was like all hands on deck, and I was still giving money away at every turn when I needed help arrived. And for me, like, the more I give away, the more comes back. It's a boomerang. And I'm not saying give money away because it's morally or ethically the right thing to do and you should because it's good or anything like that. I'm saying it actually benefits you in every aspect of your life to do it, so don't skip it. 10% into giving, and then the last thing I'll say is that these percentages are starting points. You can adjust them as needed. If you're making like millions of dollars a year, I mean, you probably don't need to live off of millions of dollars a year. So maybe you can go as high as like 50% into investing or 50% into savings or whatever you're trying to optimize for. You can really crank up the volume on those, and that's how wealth is created. When 50% of a few mil a year is going into a reliable investment and compounding over time, it really starts to accumulate fast. So do you see how all these pieces kind of work together now? Like, money is not this grand purpose of life that we organize ourselves around as though it's this real thing that we have to hoard for ourselves. Money is numbers on a scoreboard that we can play with. And you can do way more with it than you think. You can make it in way more ways than you think. And the key to doing that is to become as valuable, as skilled, and as unique as possible. And not only that, but to invest not only your time, but your attention, your energy into the most valuable things so that those things grow exponentially, and to do that over a long period of time. And at every step of the way, you continue distributing your money into that system, whether it's 10% or 15% or 50%. Your income gets distributed once a week, once a month, and you do this literally for the rest of your life.